It's funny how rappers talk about how much they flip.
I really don't care.
It's whatever type of
I really don't care.
This is the Come Up Show that feel-good music lives, real, recognized, real. I'm here at the Opera House. She is Juno nominated. She's also known as Canada's Best Secret. Please introduce yourself.
I mean, my name is Eternia, and he said the rest, so whatever he said.
ridiculous a long time ago. The antidote to whack rappers like a reef quote. Underfunded, well-groomed, so fuck it. Throw a motherfucker in this so y'all ignorant ones love it. But I speed it up for all the dually rap, coochie raps, loving cats. Imagine that I could snap your neck back. Viciousness, rip your head off like licorice. You can come one, come all, it's still effortless. I had a lot to...
Congratulations on the Source magazine.
Yeah.
How did it feel like getting that magazine and looking at yourself in the Source magazine? Like,
You know that you're the first person to ask, because that's how new it is. Like, it just dropped a couple days ago. I don't even know if it's on shelves in Canada yet. July 2010 issue of The Source. How it felt was, I always wanted to be an unsigned hype. And the irony is, I couldn't be an unsigned hype because I got a deal with Fat Beats. So I'm like, oh, well, I guess, you know, this was good too. I'm not mad at this. I was buying The Source since I was 13 years old. So no matter what, you know, print magazines are different now than they were 10, 15 years ago. But no matter what, it's like, okay, one of my life goals was crossed off. So for me personally, it's just like, okay, I can cross it off my life list. You know, it's something that I want to do, for sure.
what I was gonna say, we're growing up, when I listened to hip hop, obviously, there was a period of phase that the West had it, the East had it, and even the Third South had it. Does the North have it right now?
Absolutely. What was I reading? It was like an American publication. It was a blog site. I don't remember what it was, but I remember like that. It might have been a post of our stuff, but it was like, yo, Toronto's killing the game right now. You know, they list Drake, they list Melanie Fiona, they list whoever else they're gonna list, and then they'd be like, and Eternia and Moss are killing the game. You know, Hip Hop Canada just dropped the list of big albums coming out of Canada just in June alone. You know, Marco Polo's dropping a record, Decisive's dropping a record, we're dropping a record, Drake's dropping a record. Who am I missing? You know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, I think before people didn't want to say that they were affiliated with Toronto or with Canada. They just wanted to be viewed for their art. Now, when you say Toronto in brackets, people will actually check it. They'll be like, oh, Toronto, must be good. So it's like a bonus now, whereas before it was kind of like people didn't want to listen to you because you said you were from Canada. And that's beautiful. But I always knew we had talent from Canada. I was born and raised here, so I would be in the States like, you have no idea. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I'm glad. So that's a tip to the artists out there. If you're trying to get a blog post and you're trying to send an email in the subject line, just put Toronto in the beginning and then put whatever your shit is.
Ass out, no pause, no recaps, no shout outs, the facts out. You can't last like a glass house, I'll see through you. Rhymes doo-doo, shut your mouth, I came about. One woman stronger than you.
The album's called At Last.
It's not out for, I don't know when this video's dropping, but it's not out for a week and a half. And I hold it in my hands now. As you can see, it's already been unwrapped. Do you want to see the back? There's the back. I'm very excited about this. This is my baby.
Tone flow, study terms, vocab, study brief show, study MOSS tracks you stole, and you found your whole style in me, so let's go.
Well, Moss met me in Winnipeg in 2007, performing live, opening for him actually. So he literally said to me, what I just saw on stage, I want to capture on record. And the reason why that really resonated with me is most people would be sold when they see me live. Like when they see me live, they're like, oh, she can spit, oh, she's a real MC. They would never have a bad thing to say. But when they heard my tracks, not to say I don't love my tracks, but all my previous tracks, they weren't necessarily sold. They were like, okay, I like this, I don't like that, I'm not sure, you know? So it was really telling that when he saw me live, he's like, that's what we need to capture in the studio. And he did see the best of me. So that's what we did. I mean, he was there every single time, every song we recorded, we were in the studio together, which is why it took a long time because I was in New York and he was in Toronto. But literally, he'd make sure that I was keeping the same consistent energy no matter what I was rapping about. I could be rapping about a broken heart or F you. Or whatever, but the same consistent energy, like Ghostface. He always sounds like Ghostface. So Moss was like, you need to always sound like Eternia no matter what you're rapping, and that's what we did. And so when people might hear my songs and be like, man, why she sound like she yelling? We were raised on 90s hip hop. We were raised on like MOP and you know, Onyx and Busta Rhymes, and like cats had to have energy. And I'm not saying that kudos to the guys that sound like they're having a conversation, or kudos to the rappers that sound bored, but that's just not my thing. Like, I've always been a live performer, which is what you get when you hear me on this. I think that me and Moss would both say that we just want people to hear it. So now that we have it, that's great, but we didn't just make it for ourselves. So we definitely want people to hear it. I don't want to say whether you download it or cop it, but really, more than sales. We don't care about sales. We really care that you give it a good listen. 15 tracks deep. It's all blended, and it's very consistent, and it's very me, and it's very personal. A lot of people get surprised because the first 5 tracks in the album are very like collabo, hard driven, and then all of a sudden you get like the most personal I've ever been in my life, which is a big statement to make considering that I'm usually personal on my tracks, but this is even more personal. So, you know, as I say, you're sitting down in front of me, you're talking to me, you're having a conversation. If you put this in your deck, you'll probably learn more about who I am as a woman than even speaking to me. And so that's why it's really personal to us. Me and Moss both care a lot about this on an emotional level, you know, so.
We were just looking at the t-shirts upstairs. My favorite rapper wears a skirt.
It's funny, we made, like, the first shirts we made were maybe like 20 shirts. And I didn't consider it a clothing line. And I was just like, this is a really cool slogan, let's see where we go with it. And I literally kept on selling out. Like, I took them to Europe. First day I sold out of all my shirts. Granted, I had like 100, you know, but first day I sold, right. Hip hop camp in Europe, big festival, bigger than Rock the Bells. So, you know, we just kept on having to refill and it just never got old. And I don't even know if I have a clothing line. Do I have a clothing line? I just have a t-shirt that represents Eternia, but we might take it further. I don't know. It was just one of those things that happened really naturally.
It's been a long time coming. If it's the last verse I ever write, I promise you it's about something. Cats singing but ain't saying nothing. They get me back up like phenoms when I shot and they function.
I really value and appreciate your faith. It's 2010. There's all these things coming out about religion and bashing on religion, but what is, can you tell me about your faith in God and how come God is very important in your life?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a Christian, so I was raised Christian, but I was never a Christian at all. When I wrote this album, I was not a Christian. That's why I didn't know if God wanted it to come out. You understand what I'm saying? And then I was baptized in 2009, and I was kind of like, okay, I've committed my life to God, but what does that mean for this thing over here, you know, at last? Which, by the way, has a whole bunch of really redeeming stuff in it. It's not a bad album. It's just, obviously, my mind was different. I was somewhere else. So that's why it mattered to me, you know, and you know, everybody has a different perception of what Christianity is, and that's a whole complicated conversation. But to me, it's just someone who loves and follows God and loves and follows Christ and just wants to be Christ-like. And I don't think anybody, whether they're a Christian or not, I don't think anybody would say that what Jesus said out of his mouth wasn't a good way to live. You know what I mean? Like, wasn't like he wasn't a man of peace and he wasn't a rebel and he wasn't, you know, someone who really changed the game.
Thank you very much, Eternia. You're a very real person, I can tell. Like, we're having conversation, basically. You know what I mean?
You're one of the only journalists to ask me all those questions, so props to you, too.
Yeah.
For real.
Yeah.
Like, I love to talk about it, just nobody ever asked me. So.
I think some people probably are not comfortable about it, too.
Yeah. I think it's easy to stick to music, you know, for a lot of people. But my music and my life are like this. They're not, you can't separate one from the other. I find it surprising that a lot of people don't ask me more about my content because it's a lot of life stuff. So it's like, you can ask me about my family. You can ask me about God. I rap about this stuff, you know? You can ask me about my relationships. I rap about this stuff, you know, whatever.
Thank you very much, Eternia.
No, thank you.
Is there anything else that you wanted to say before we...
I'm a work in progress. Yeah, man, I'm a work in progress. So I just thank you for being along on the journey with me.
No problem. This is The Come Up Show that Feel Good Music lives. Real, recognized, real, thecomeupshow.com.
Come on, it ain't that strange.
Your dad, here's my dad.
Yeah,